following the first day of debates at the Gimnich Informal Ministers meeting of today. We have the Latvian Foreign Minister Edgar Rinkēvics here today with us, and the High Representative Vice President Federica Mogherini. They will both say a few words, and then we'll take a couple of questions. Minister, you have the floor.
Good evening. This time I will speak in English in order to save some time, but first of all, apologies for being a little bit late, as we scheduled this briefing at 6:35, but I can tell you that we had a very good, productive discussions on two, most probably the hottest issues for the European Union right now. One on Libya. I think that it was very important that here in Riga we were talking also about the southern neighborhood, about situation in Libya, which of course is of obvious concern to all of us, not only countries that are members and are southern members, but also we understand that there are some complex issues that affect also security of the entire European Union. I was pleased to see that there is basic agreement among member states on further course of action to explore, first of all, what we as European Union can do in order to support the current political process in Libya through all means possible, and we also cannot exclude the possibility that's going to be this further discussion also using common security and defense policy instrument. Then we had also, I think, very good discussion on the situation in Ukraine as well as on Russia and further EU strategy vis-à-vis Russia. Here I think that it is very important to underline, and I'm sorry to probably take a little bit role of Federica, but I think it is very important to underline that all of us understand that unity we have had, we have to keep. We had discussion about the best steps we can take as a European Union in future. We discussed with Secretary General of OSCE the current situation on the ground. I think that we got a very good briefing about how currently the monitoring mission, special monitoring mission of the OSCE is working. We are all of agreement that we need to support increase of monitors and the overall capacity of OSCE in order to monitor ceasefire and Minsk agreements. We are also of the same agreement that if the Minsk agreements are being implemented, then of course we can go further politically supporting the overall reform process in Ukraine, as well as supporting the implementation also of key elements of that agreement. But we also have been of the opinion that if there is a serious deterioration of situation in the eastern Ukraine and Minsk agreements are going to be violated, then of course the European Union is prepared to take further restrictive measures, further sanctions, in case if there is the real need to do that. And overall, we also had, I believe, a very good discussion on how we can support Ukraine. We all are of the same opinion that the country really needs assistance package, not only financial assistance package, but also expertise, also the real support from experts and coordinated support. Sometimes we do things on bilateral base, but not the coordination is not very good. So we also discuss those issues. So overall, long but I think very productive discussions, and I think that we have had also a good basis for our discussions in Brussels at the formal session of the Foreign Affairs Council in 10 days' time, and also actually I think that we are laying already a good groundwork also for European Council discussion later in March concerning Ukraine, Russia, Libya as well as Eastern Partnership. I'll stop here. I promise to be brief, but as always, it's not the case.
High Representative, you have the floor.
You made my life easier. As the Minister said, and I would like to thank him very much for the perfect, excellent cooperation and in the preparation of this informal meeting and all over the Latvian presidency and for the months still to come, which are a long way, especially in view of the Riga summit that we will discuss tomorrow as well. But as Edgar said, the discussions we had today with the ministers in an informal setting, so no formal decision was to be taken, are preparing the ground for formal decisions in the next Foreign Affairs Council on the 16th of March, and then the European Council that, as you know, will have on the agenda both Libya and the situation in Ukraine. I will start from the situation in Ukraine. As Edgar has said very well, today we focused mainly on the way in which the European Union can support the implementation of the Minsk Agreement, starting from the strengthening of the OSCE mission. On the ground, the discussion we had with the Secretary General of the OSCE were helpful not only to assess the situation on the ground, but also to understand what is needed, which means what is lacking at the moment, to make it really effective on the monitoring of the ceasefire and on the monitoring of the withdrawal of weapons. But also, main focus was on the other parts of the implementation of Minsk Agreement, starting from the reform process in Ukraine, being it reforms on the social and economic level, reforms on the political level, decentralization process, reform of the constitution, all the way to early local elections as the Minsk Agreement foresees. We also shared the need to continue our European Union exercise of trilateral talks with Russia and Ukraine, both on the energy issues and on the trade issues, in particular the implementation of the trade agreement. We also insisted on the fact that we need to have more effective humanitarian support and access to the west and also to the east of Ukraine, and the EU will increase its effort in this respect. I would not stress our unity more than he has done, but we are all very much aware of the fact that this is our point of strength, being it when we adopt the sanctions, as it has been in the past, and it could be in the future if the situation deteriorates, being it our unity on the support of Ukraine, being it also on the political dialogue and on the diplomatic process. We are united on any single action we do vis-à-vis Russia, vis-à-vis the situation in Ukraine. Let me now pass to Libya. It was a very important discussion, I think, preparing the discussion we will have in the Foreign Affairs Council in 10 days. We started it with a connection, with a telephone call with Bernardino Leon that was calling us from Rabat. He was just in the middle of the negotiations, so reporting the state of play of the talks, quite positive, quite encouraging, even if obviously the process will be still difficult and long. But the very same fact that the talks are taking place and are moving forward are definitely a very positive sign that was not to be given for granted, and it was not taken for granted in the last months. The European Union is already investing a lot in this process. We are financially supporting the very same dialogue that is taking place in Rabat, that is UN-led exercise with the European Union financial support. We are hosting on the 9th of March, so in a few days, a Libyan businessman meeting in Brussels to make sure that the business community from Libya, different sides, different parts of Libya, comes together and is able also to express support to the political process, concern about the deterioration of the security situation in the country. We need to build the confidence inside the country, starting also from the civil society actors, and we know businessmen and businesswomen are a relevant part of it, as well as we will in Brussels have a municipality meeting as soon as possible, as soon as the dialogue continues over the next days, and we agree with the UN the right time to intervene with that. But we are already planning a meeting of the municipalities to accompany on the local community level the process of political dialogue that is now in place in Rabat. As well as Edgar said, we've started discussing possible European Union contributions agreed with the UN, with the Arab interlocutors, with other regional actors, the EU contributions to supporting any possible agreement coming out from the dialogue that is currently underway. All possible supports, all possible forms of support, including also missions or operations that could be explored in the coming days. I've always said, if the political process starts, if the political process brings to some starting point inside Libya, the international community and the European Union, first of all, will be ready to support with all possible means. So we started discussing today with the ministers different options that will come back to the table in 10 days for first decisions or further evaluation, depending on where we stand with the process of dialogue. I think I'm not forgetting anything very relevant, and if I have, you will ask for sure with your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take a few questions. I already see one over there. Wait for the mic, please, and introduce yourself and the media you're working for, and say clearly to whom you're asking your questions. Please go ahead, Raf.
Mr. Mogherini, this is Raf Kazal of the Associated Press. If I can briefly take you to another issue, to Iran, could you give us an update where we stand, how far out we still are, and what the major issues still are that remain?
We decided that we were trying to reply to questions that were related to the things we discussed in the meeting. But briefly, negotiations are still ongoing. As I said several times, a good deal is at hand. I've also stated several times, and I repeat it, there will be not a deal if it is not a good deal, which means that everybody in the world, because this is a non-proliferation, so a security issue for the whole world, has to be sure that the deal we're working at is a deal that guarantees that there is no military possibility, military development to the nuclear program of Iran. I do not go into details, obviously, of the technical negotiations that are on the way, but let me say that it is now a matter of still some steps, so I'm optimist, but very much of political will. And we have to make sure that there are not only political will expressed, but also political conditions inside the relevant countries to make it possible for the political leadership to take the responsibility of a choice. And this is also my personal role, as you know, as a facilitator of the dialogue. We will be working on that in the coming days as well.
Helen, over there.
Helen Maguire, German press agency DPA. We're getting confirmation that there's been an agreement to double the number of OSCE monitors from 500 to 1,000 in the region. I wanted to ask whether you've also had discussions on how to ensure that they can actually do their job and how they can access the contested territories.
We were discussing exactly this with the Secretary General of the OSCE, with Zanya. Not only the need to guarantee access to the relevant areas, also what kind of technical instruments can be given to the mission. I'm thinking of satellite imagery, radar equipment, in case the use of drone, to monitor the situation when and where it is not possible to reach physically the area. But obviously the main point is guaranteeing access to the key areas, to the monitors. We also discussed the availability expressed to raise the top number, the maximum number of monitoring of observers. you know, now that number is 500. We still don't have 500 observers on the ground, so the main point is obviously working also to increase the number of selected and professional and skilled people that can do the job on the territory. So we have discussed exactly this and the way in which the European Union, that is already providing satellite imageries, for instance. Since the very same day of the signing of the Minsk agreement, we were quick for once to react, can provide also assistance and support to the selection of the personnel to send and also contribute with people.
And the final question over there.
Yes, my name is Yuris Kaja from the Wall Street Journal. What possible missions are you exploring in case there is a final agreement on a settlement in Libya? And what support will you offer in the near term, perhaps providing security for key infrastructure and borders? And how soon could you be in place in Libya if it becomes necessary? And do you have the funding for that?
Obviously, any detail and also any mandate for a possible EU mission of that kind will have to be agreed, first of all, with the Libyans, if we have a starting point, a national unity government or something close to it. So it will not be in any case possible to work on the details now before we have an interlocutor in Libya that can define together with us the needs, the appropriate ways of contributing or supporting, but it could be obviously the monitoring of a ceasefire if there is a ceasefire, the protection of basic infrastructures could be. We have, as you know, still a mission that we had before the situation deteriorated on the protection, on the control of the borders, that is now not able to act within Libya, but the work on the borders can be done within Libya or outside Libya. There could be different options that can be explored. The point is to make it in full coordination, especially on the needs, on the requests, and on the modalities, and also on the timing, with the Libyans, first of all, with the UN, because we need coordination, not competition, for sure, and also with key Arab interlocutors, because obviously we have to make it sure that this is something that is politically helpful and not only logistically helpful. But the message that I think could come from the meeting of today on Libya is that, first of all, that of an encouragement of those participating to the dialogue to go on, and a hand offered to them in the moment when the dialogue will reach a fruitful result. They will find the European Union and member states together with the UN, together with other countries, ready to offer all forms of support that they will consider useful and needed for their country.
Thank you very much.